Novel Navigator. Chapter 161, New Student. Renard stood up from his high back-end chair and walked to the window, his back facing Adam. He had always enjoyed the view of the clouds forming underneath him. It was very therapeutic. It made him feel like a god. "This is my school, and I can give some extra credit to whoever I want," he said, using the reflection on the window to look at Adam. "I care about talent." Adam listened with his mouth staying in a straight line. "While other folks care about only strength, I care about talent that can lead to strength. That's why those who show great potential get some extra perks that others don't." Renard then turned around, walked over to the desk, and put his hands down on it, staring straight at Adam with his deep gaze. "You're what everyone in this institute should strive for, a talent that is only limited by humanity's own limitations. Rancor. Abandon the weak, and in a year or two, you might be standing where I am now. You want to recruit me as the headmaster?" Adam asked with a frown. Renard's mouth opened and closed like he was laughing, but no sound came out. It was eerie and creepy. "Maybe," he said with a sly grin. "You're still too green for that, though, but if you accept my faction's guidance, I'm sure we can get you there soon enough." "And what is that faction?" Adam asked with a deep frown, but he already knew. "Some may call it pro-strong," Renard said. "But I don't share the core values of that faction." "What do you mean by that?" Adam asked. "From what I've heard, pro-strong are nothing but slaver wannabes. I always thought the slaving part was a little silly," Renard said. "I don't wish to make people my slaves." He sat down on the desk and looked at Adam with a serious expression. "I am thinking much further. I'll be honest here. Most pro-strong folks are hateful beings. They were bullied and wronged for being weak, so when they finally became strong, they returned the favor by oppressing others. It's a vicious cycle that needs to be broken. I am a dreamer, YC, and I want this faction to reach the top and show that strength can be used for good, not just to inflict pain." "What a fucking hypocrite." Adam looked cold. "He calls the ones he deems as talentless and weak, and then preaches about using strength for good. There's nothing good about what he does. I wouldn't be surprised if those he deems worthy are using their status to take advantage of others just like pro-strong folks do. I am not sure whether he is just ignorant and blind. Maybe he just genuinely believes what he is doing is good, but his understanding of good is way different." "May I ask, but what is good?" Adam asked. "Many have different understandings of the good." "I don't mind," Renard said with a smile. "I'll reveal some things about my dream. I do wish that the needless violence stops, such as those bloody guild wars and pointless battles over territory. The war is brewing on the horizon. A great guild war. I wish to stop that and the bloodshed it causes. A strong order is needed to keep everyone in line so they can focus their attention on more important matters, such as clearing the dungeon. One day, under my lead, I wish to see the dungeon conquered. I think the laws of the New World are way too lax. They're allowing the conflict, but my plan is to stop all of it before it even starts to brew. King Moriarty, in my opinion, is a horrible king. He sits on his lofty throne, looking down at others as if they are mere pawns in his game of power. That's all he cares about his own power. I wish to give power to others. One day, everyone will be strong, and there's no more weak." Adam listened silently, but there was only one word that came to his mind. Benevolent tyranny. Suddenly a knock came from the door. "Ah!" Renard pulled out his timepiece and saw the time. "Oh, it seems I've kept you here long enough. Your class is about to start." "Oh." Adam stood and bowed. "Thank you for your time and wisdom, sir." He was hiding his sarcastic tone. Renard smiled and said, "Think about it. If you join my faction, I'll make you reach heights. That would seem impossible at first. You can be a part of fulfilling my dream." "I'll think about it." Adam said, bowed, and then left the room. After the talk, he had a pretty good understanding of Renard's character. He is very much the same as other pro-strong folk. He might act like he isn't, but he definitely is. This is not my first ride with these lunatics, and I see through him like a transparent piece of glass. Your class is about to start, Mr. Caretaker said, standing outside as he hadn't moved an inch ever since Adam entered the office. All right. Adam nodded and took out his floor orb. Class E's classroom, Mr. Caretaker said, and got sucked inside the orb. Class E's classroom, Adam said, and watched as the orb glowed brightly before transporting him to his destination. Again, after spinning and traveling through distances, he appeared at the front of a door in a corridor with 6 different doors. Beside each door, there were signs that read Class A, Class B, Class C, Class D, Class E, and Class F. Each door was closed, but there were voices and sounds coming from each classroom. It looked like each class was underway. Mr. Caretaker opened the door to the Class E's room and walked inside with his cane tapping against the floor. He went to the teacher and whispered something to him. The teacher looked outside straight at Adam, her eyes flashing with surprise and curiosity. All right. Irene nodded at Mr. Caretaker and turned to the rest of the class with a smile. We have a new student. At the front row of the class, Terry smiled from his seat, but then felt something hit the back of his head. It was an eraser that slowly hit the ground. Terry touched the back of his head and turned around and saw a group of students snickering and whispering with each other. He wanted to say something, but after exchanging glances with one of them, his words got stuck in his throat and he turned back to the front. Coward, Noel said with a grin after seeing Terry again do nothing. A new student, I wonder if it's he or she. Renee, a young woman beside him, asked in excitement. Behind her, Jake said, I hope it's a cute girl, there's not enough girls in our class. Renee rolled her eyes. Even if there were 20 girls and you, no one would still date you. Hey, who do you think I am, Terry? Jake laughed. Just so you know, girls love my sense of humor. Weird, I don't. Renee turned to him with a cheeky smile. Because you're not a girl, Jake said with a playful grin and tapped his finger on her forehead, only for her to slap his hand away. Don't touch me, now I have to wash my whole body, Renee said in disgust and shuddered in a playful manner. Irene watched as the whole class whispered between each other and then turned to the door, showed a gentle smile, and said, Come in. The whole class's eyes landed on the front, and from the door, Adam entered the classroom and stood beside her in silence, looking around the class with a calm expression. The other students thought that he looked rather normal. This is Adam, and unlike most of you, he had already done his tutorial and came from the New World to attend the Elder Tree Institute. The students looked surprised. It would mean that Adam was quite talented and must have received a decent talent rank in the tutorial. Renee raised her hand and asked, What's his rank? She was very outspoken and always spoke out her mind. The rest of the class also wanted to know his rank. Terry also wondered about it. He believed that he must be at least B rank. He doesn't look strong, Noel thought, looking coldly at Adam. He is Terry's roommate. Isn't he not? Humph. Irene wryly smiled. She never expected to have a chance to ever teach someone of his caliber. This was her first year of teaching at Elder Tree Institute, and she got a monster as a student. Why me? She felt like crying. Am I worthy even? I am a rookie teacher. The students waited impatiently. Seeing her take her time, Mr. Caretaker tapped his cane on the floor. His name is Adam Palestar, and he is S-ranker. He has come here to study alongside all of you, but don't get mistaken, he is far from an amateur like some of you may be. Mr. Caretaker's voice boomed across the room. I suggest you all learn from him and strive to reach his level. Chapter 162, Godhood Awaits. The silence in the classroom felt almost suffocating. The wide-eyed students stared blankly at the new student. Take your seat, Mr. Caretaker said, ignoring the silence, and then left the classroom. Adam nodded and took a seat in the front row, with Terry on his left side and a round-headed young woman on his right. The young woman glanced at Adam, shock on her eyes. Ahem. Irene cleared her throat and said. All right, let's continue with the lesson. S-ranker. What in the world? Terry side-eyed Adam discreetly. It was a huge shock to him. After all, since he'd been stuck in the Elder Tree Institute and couldn't enter the new world without tutorial, he'd been reading books and had studied about the S-rankers. They were monsters in human skin. Now, one of them was sitting right beside him and was his roommate. Adam, since you don't have your books yet, you can use your neighbor's book meanwhile. Irene said. Adam nodded and moved his seat closer to Terry. Do you mind? And no. Terry's voice trembled, and he showed him the hardcover book with the golden cover and embossed letters. Oh, the history of the New World. Adam remembered reading it a while back. It was basically the most popular book of the New World as it told the tale of its creation. However, ever since the discovery of the Old World, he wondered whether any of it was actually true. Have you read it before? Terry asked. Once, Adam said. We're at page 186, Terry said. Adam turned his attention to the book. Many years ago, before the creation of the Wall and the 5 cities, the land was very different. Irene started reading text straight from the book. The words painted a vivid image of times long bygone. With red and black soil filling the land, the originals lived in oppression under the rule of the tyrannical warlords. There was one tyrannical warlord for every region, each more ruthless than the last. While there were only 5 of them, there were 1,000 originals under each of them, who suffered greatly at their hands. Strength, cruelty, fear, manipulation, and oppression, those were the tools of their trade, each warlord possessing one of those qualities. That's why they were tyrannical warlords in name and purpose. The students listened in interest since none of them had really visited the New World. They were very interested in that place, even if it included some stories from thousands of years ago. However, even their tyranny came ultimately to an end as a hero arose, a lofty hero with hair like gold and eyes like diamonds. He was the High King Saruman. With his great blade, he defeated the warlords and restored peace and prosperity to the land, becoming a legend that would be told for generations to come. It's been said that the current High King of the New World, Moriarty, is his descendant. That's a story shared among the originals, but players doubt its truth for many reasons. Adam glanced between the teacher and the book. This was one of the pages that intrigued him the most. After all, there wasn't much revealed about the time between that incident and the arrival of the players. Who knows what really happened after Saruman became the ruler of the New World? At that moment, his eyes started to feel heavy, and his head suddenly slumped down as he started sleeping. With crimson water crashing against the cliffs, Adam opened his eyes wide with annoyance flashing by his eyes. Can you stop that, seriously? Adam asked angrily. I am in a class. I am intrigued by that history. Palestar walked to him with a grin. What a shitty history, You heard what was happening. Adam frowned. You said you couldn't hear, feel, or see anything. Yeah, I can't, but I could sense some things. Palestar said. Like I was able to sense the demoness. That book's whispers of history echoed in here. Adam rolled his eyes, not sure whether he was believing him any further. He felt like he hadn't been truly honest about everything. So, is the history true about the tyrannical warlords and Saruman? Adam asked. Half, and half. Palestar said. That history didn't happen in the new world, but in the old world. Hey, really? Adam looked surprised and then chuckled. Funny, as that book's name is The History of the New World. Yeah, they've been trying to override the old world's history with the new world's. So, what really happened? Adam asked. Tyrannical warlords were my satanic angels. Palestar said. They ruled the old world in my name and protected the originals from the dangers of the chaos beings. Oh, they weren't oppressed? Adam asked. Oppressed or not, does it really matter in the end? Palestar asked. Without their protection, they would have been food for the chaos beings. The old world was no place for a weak, but that foolish brother of mine could not see that and created them anyway. What was the God Almighty doing all that time? Adam asked. What made him want to take the old world away from you? I am the older brother, the old world belonged to me by birthright. Palestar said. However, my brother was always the kind one, and he couldn't bear to see his creations suffer. So, they were oppressed. Adam rolled his eyes, not surprised in the slightest. He sent his own angel to the old world. I guess he was that Saruman, which is not his real name, by the way. I thought he defeated the tyrannical warlords to take the old world away from me, but I found out a few thousand years later that they did, in fact, not lose but instead joined forces with him. They betrayed me. Why would they do that? Adam asked. Those morons wanted to become white-winged angels. Palestar said. My warlords were fallen angels, YC, as they broke rules in the kingdom, so they were thrown into the abyss, where they got corrupted. They really thought my brother would accept them back. He is kind-hearted, yes, but he is not foolish enough to allow snakes in his garden. In the end, that Saruman broke the deal by the orders of my brother and sealed them away somewhere. That's not what I expected. Adam took a deep breath. I wonder if I am the first one among players to know the real truth. Haha, and my brother changed this place. Palestar rose and pointed all around him at the old world and said, he made it his own. So, you're pretty much the bad guy of the story. Adam laughed. Should have guessed. Yeah, I am the bad guy, the dark god. Palestar turned to him with a grin. But every story needs a villain. That's the most important character, isn't it? Adam raised an eyebrow. I have a job for you. Palestar said. I don't expect you to complete it any time soon, because you're weak. No thanks. Adam stood up and patted the dust off his trousers. I don't owe you shit. It's better for us to work together. Palestar said with a smile. You don't want me to trap you here, forever, now do you? Adam rolled his eyes and asked angrily. What the fuck you want? Kill the warlords for me. Palestar said. They're sealed in the world of the mist. When you're strong enough to travel through it, go and slay them. You want me to kill some divine beings? Adam asked with a frown. Yes, I do. Palestar said. I know you're too weak now, but you have to become stronger in order to defeat them. Much stronger. Adam shook his head and laughed. Yeah, sure, let me become High King. Real quick then. High King is not enough, Palestar said. You must become something else entirely. You must reach the angel status, yourself. Angel? Adam asked. How many ranks are there above the High King? High King is still nothing more than a mortal. Palestar said. Beyond that, the realm of godhood awaits. Chapter 163, Potential Rank. Hey, Adam, wake up. Terry tried shaking Adam awake as the class had already ended. The students slowly departed from the class but took one last good look at Adam. After seeing him sleep so carefreely in the class, they thought he was quite the character. No one else would dare to sleep in one of the lectures, or they might be sent to the culling. Irene finished up packing her things and looked at Adam, slightly annoyed that he just slept through her lecture. It made her feel like she was a boring teacher. At that moment, Adam jolted awake and sat straight, looking around him in clear confusion. Adam! Terry breathed a sigh of relief. The class is over. Already? Adam touched his head and shook it, then nodded to Terry and stood up to leave. As Terry walked past Irene, when it was Adam's turn, she finally spoke out. Mr. Adam, I don't appreciate you sleeping through my lesson. Irene puffed her chest. I'll allow it this one time, but if that happens again, I'll have to send you to the detention. Oh, I am sorry. Adam apologized and said. I have narcolepsy, I can't control when I fall asleep and when not. Irene's eyes widened in surprise. Really? Did I fall asleep suddenly? Adam asked. Yeah. Irene remembered him just falling asleep without any warning, almost like some kind of switch had been flipped inside him. I'll try to stay awake next time. Adam said, then bowed respectfully and left the class to follow after Terry. Irene, after hearing the excuse, didn't feel so bad anymore and hummed a song in a soft voice while finishing packing up. Outside the class, at the corridor, Terry and Adam left and entered the stairs, but then noticed a group of 3 students leaning against the railing, blocking the path with their legs kicked up. Noelle, Renee, and Jake just laughed with each other, like they were talking about something bad. Terry wanted to tell them to move, but again felt his words get stuck inside his mouth. Excuse me, can you move? Adam asked. Hey! Noelle turned to Adam and smirked. Oh, look who it is, the Sleepy King. I didn't talk to you to start a conversation. Adam said. You're blocking the path. Damn, not friendly, Noelle asked, a smile leaving his face. We're classmates, you should talk to me in a more friendly way. Adam, we can just use our floor orbs. Terry said and wanted to stop Adam before it escalated any further. Yeah, use those orbs, like a little bitch. Noelle said while looking straight at Terry. That's what you do best, don't you, Terry? Run away again. Renee giggled, and Jake's laughter was irritating to listen to. Apologize, Adam said. To who? Noelle laughed. To Terry? I would rather jump off the railing to my death. That can be arranged. Adam smiled. Don't, Adam. Terry shouted and tried to stop him. There's punishment if you fight him. Noelle's grin grew even wider. Come on, punch me and see what happens. Adam's eyes glowed with a green tint for a slight moment. Crack. Hey, what was that noise? Renee frowned and turned to look down. Her eyes widened in terror as the stairs began to crumble beneath her feet. She started screaming and tried to escape the crumbling stairs, but then saw even the stairs behind her were falling apart rapidly. What the fuck? Jake quickly grabbed the railing and saw his legs dangling in the empty air with a fall of thousands of meters below. Noelle let out a panicky scream and jumped on the railing. There was enormous fall under him, and it felt like the railing couldn't handle his weight. Strangely enough, the stairs under Adam and Terry didn't disappear. Please, don't let me fall. Noelle reached out his hand towards Adam. Save me. Adam grabbed his hand and pulled him towards him, but then while Noelle was dangling off by the edge, he let go of the hand. Noelle started falling down and screamed hoarsely. No 00000. The railing also fell apart, causing Renee and Jake to fall. They were crying and screaming while pleading for someone to help. As the other classes ended, other students came to look at what caused the screaming, and even the teachers rushed in, with them was Irene. Their expressions looked strange. Noelle, Renee, and Jake were rolling around the stairs, flailing their arms and legs in panic. The students started laughing, wondering what the hell they were doing. The green tint left Adam's eyes, and then in Renee's, Noel's, and Jake's eyes, the stairs returned, and they were back on the stairs, tears on their eyes. Yet. Noel sat up and looked around in fear. How? What? Mom. Renee mumbled, tears streaming down her face. Jake grabbed the railing so hard that his hands turned white. He didn't want to let go, ever. Then, they heard laughter, and when they turned around, they saw laughing students and angry-looking teachers who didn't like the commotion that the three had caused. You should have stepped aside. Adam looked at Noel and then walked over them, followed by Terry, who tried to muffle his laughter. Noel, Renee, and Jake, in my office, now. Irene shouted. But, the stairs disappeared. Noel stammered over his words. I was falling. I was about to die. Did you take drugs? Irene grabbed Noel by the ear and started dragging him back to the classroom. You are in big trouble, young man. But stairs. Ha ha ha, what the hell was that? Terry followed after Adam and asked. Did you do something? Oh, why do you think so? Adam asked with a smile while stepping down the stairs. There was 1 hour of free time before the next classes, and he wanted to get his books before that, therefore, he was going to visit the library. I am not stupid. Terry said and excitedly asked. Is that one of those skills? Yeah. Adam chuckled. Illusion skill. In their eyes, the stairs disappeared, and they started falling down to the ground. Terry shuddered. That's scary. Yeah, I might have traumatized them a little bit, Adam admitted with a grin. You're scary, do you know that? Terry said with a slight tremor in his voice. You think I went too far? Adam asked and found himself at the doorsteps of the library. They entered through the door and arrived at the library with shelves filled with books filling up the floor. There was another floor above them, accessible by a winding staircase. I don't know. Terry answered truthfully. Noel is a complete asshole. They've been bullying you, right? Adam asked while going through the books, trying to find his books. Yeah. Terry scratched the back of his head. That obvious. I am not blind. Adam said. If they bother you in the future, I won't help you. Why don't you grow stronger instead? Adam asked. It is far more satisfying to beat them. By yourself. Terry sighed and looked down. All the students are ranked in a way. Do you know? No. Adam looked at him. What do you mean? The headmaster gives each student a rank of their potential talent. He updates those every month, pretty much. Noel's potential is A rank. Renee is B rank. Jake is B rank. I am D rank. D rank, hey. Adam shrugged his shoulders. Could be worse. Well, the thing is, E rankers are usually expelled, so D rank is the lowest you can be here. Terry said. I fear that next month I might be E rank. Then you gotta do something about it. Adam said, and then found one of the books on the shelf. That's easy to say. Terry sighed. You're automatically S rank potential. You just need to put in the effort. Adam said. Everything starts from that. When the classes are done, let's exercise together. What do you say? Exercise. Terry repeated, puzzled. Yeah. Adam said. This place must have some kind of gym, right? It has. Terry said and frowned. Is that really all I have to do to increase in rank? Yeah. Adam laughed. It's really not that complicated. Show some effort, grow stronger, and you'll move up the ranks quickly. Chapter 164, Murder. I saw murder. The classes ended, and the 1,000-strong student body poured out into the dining hall for an after-class dinner. 4 long tables were set up with a variety of delicious dishes, and each table was quickly surrounded by hungry students eager to eat. Each table fit over a few hundred students easily. At the end of the dining hall, there was a table for the teachers that was facing the rest of the hall, where the eagle-eyed teachers could keep a close watch on the students. 3 chandeliers hung from the ceiling, each being as big as a small car. The chandeliers were adorned with white crystals that cast the light across the hall. It had been a long day of classes, and some students looked like they were roughed up quite a bit. Their hair was disheveled, and their clothes were wrinkled and dirted. It looked like they had spent a whole day in some swamp or forest. At the table with the students of dirted clothes, they were absent-mindedly taking food from their plates and stuffing them inside their mouths. "Yo, did you guys hear?" A young man suddenly came to them and sat across them. "What?" a tired voice asked. "I don't get how you can still be this energetic after spending the whole day in that wretched place. First of all, how did you manage to change the clothes this quick?" They looked at the student, who was just smiling and filling his plate with delicious food. Unlike others, he didn't have a single dirt on him. The clothes were clean and looked brand new. It didn't even look like there was a single wrinkle on them. "I wonder," Ryan answered with a wink. "Anyway, did you guys hear?" "Hear what?" "Young ones had a new student in the class E," Ryan said. "From what I heard, he is rather special. The students were ranked based on how long they've been in the institute. Young, middle, and elder. The young ones were students that had been in the institute for less than 3 years. The middle ones were students that had been in the institute for 3 to 6 years. And lastly, elder ones were students that had been in the institute for 6 to 9 years. After 9 years, the elder ones would just graduate. However, no one had been in the institute for that long of a time yet." "Special student?" one of them asked. "Yeah, I heard rumors." Ryan chuckled, turned his head around to look at the young ones' table, and said, "You've heard about the guy Adam Palestar, right? That new S-ranker?" One of them nodded. "Yeah, he was big news about a couple of months ago when those news traveled here." "Do you mean?" "Yeah, apparently that guy joined the institute," Ryan said. "Damn, but it isn't really a surprise," one of them said. "All S-rankers have studied in here, haven't they?" "Apparently so." Ryan took some food into his mouth and eyed the young one's table. He was wondering who this guy was, but since there were over 1,000 students present, it was hard to find him. At this moment, the tall and big doors opened, and in walked a man with a dark complexion and a stern expression. "Fuck." Ryan was about to take a drink of water but halted and stood up abruptly. It wasn't just him. As soon as the students saw him, they rose to their feet with equally serious expressions. Not a single person was happy to see him. The teachers rose to their feet as well and bowed respectfully to the man who had just entered the hall. Renard, with his back straight and a stern look on his face, walked past the students and took his spot at the center of the teachers' table. As soon as he sat down, all the students and the teachers followed in suit. A single sound of people sitting down echoed throughout the hall. At the young one's table, Terry and Adam sat down side by side. "Have you met the headmaster yet?" Terry asked. "I did earlier today," Adam said. "Did you see him laugh?" Terry asked with a smirk. It was pretty loud in the young one's table, but since they were sitting side by side, both were still able to hear each other. However, no one else was able to. Several students continued glancing in Adam's direction, too nervous to go to talk to him, so they stuck to staring at him. "Kind of." Adam shrugged his shoulders. It looked like he was laughing, but in the end he wasn't. "Yeah, haha." Terry looked over to the teacher's table. "It makes him look super creepy, doesn't it?" "Kind of. Apparently he has some laughing disorder that whenever he laughs, no sound comes out." "Really?" Adam's eyebrow rose as that was something even he hadn't heard about. That's why, among students, he is called Renard the Silent. I assume that name is spoken in whispers. Adam looked at him with a smile. The students seemed to fear him. Renard is scary. Terry whispered. I mean, the headmaster. He doesn't like when we use his real name either. What kind of person do you think he is? Adam asked. Do you think he has kindness in his heart? Haha, Terry laughed and had to cover his mouth to stifle his laughter. Kindness? His heart is too small to fit kindness in. Thought so. Adam chuckled and took a sip of a pint of foam-covered drink. Bang! Like a gunshot, the doors slammed open, and a figure dressed in all black burst into the room. He seemed panicky, his eyes darting around the room wildly and his arms flailing around as if he were swimming through the air. Stop right there! Renard's voice boomed through the air as he stood up in anger. The start of the dinner had already passed. If you haven't arrived by the hall before then, you'll be left without food. Get out! The young man looked scared and shouted. Murder! I saw murder! A surprising silence fell over the hall. It was usually only silent when the headmaster arrived in the hall, but this time, it was different. Another one. The students whispered. Terry gulped and said to Adam. There's been a series of killings lately. It started about a month ago, and they still haven't caught the killer. Can't they ask from people who got killed? Adam asked. They tried, but none of them saw the killer's face or even a voice. Terry said with a sigh. They just dropped dead suddenly. What's this fool spouting? Renard left the teacher's table, grabbed the scared student by the arm, and tugged him away from the hall. As soon as they left, the voices of the students turned loud once again, filling the hall with chatter. The teacher also looked concerned. Another murder. A dirty-clothed student said with a sigh. Ryan took a sip of his drink and then said, during the dinner? That's bold. It should be easier to narrow the culprit down. Right, if the killer is a student, it should be easy to narrow it down. One of them exclaimed. Wait. One of them turned to one of the empty seats near them. Where is Dylan? He didn't come to the dinner. Dylan. Ryan looked at the empty seat. He always disappears randomly, doesn't he? We should bring this to the attention of the teachers. Yeah, let's do that. Chapter 165, The Dormitory Party. Tap, tap, tap. Renard, dragging the young man behind him, walked down the hallway of a floor that looked nice with its ornate square-shaped windows and long carpet leading to a grand staircase. Where did you find the body? Where? Renard shouted. Up the staircase, the young man whispered. Why were you here, hey? Renard asked. This is a teacher-only area. I am Johnson's assistant. The young man shouted. I was told to bring him the books from his class. Humph, fine. Renard pushed aside the young man, who stumbled and crashed against the wall. As Renard reached the staircase, he saw that the steps of the stairs had a trail of blood trickling down them, almost like the staircase was an arm that had been cut open. While avoiding the blood, he made his way up the stairs and soon saw an arm dangling lifelessly off the edge of the stairs, its fingers cold to touch. After reaching the top of the stairs, he saw a light brown-haired young man, his arms sprawled out and his eyes staring up at the ceiling, a look of horror frozen on his face. It looked like he had been dead for days, but that couldn't be true as teachers used this place every day. However, the dead in the mortal online world rotted quicker, the corpses turned cold and lifeless within minutes. The blood pooled around the corpse of the young man and even touched Renard's shoes, staining them with a gruesome reminder of the violent act. Tch, dirty. Renard stepped aside, took out a handkerchief, and wiped the blood off his shoes. After a short while, more teachers arrived at the scene and felt their blood run cold as they saw the dead student. It happened right in front of their office. It was like the killer was making fun of them. Who could do this? This was a statement. The killer's arrogance knows no bounds. Last murders usually happened after the dinner when everyone was leaving to do their own things, so it was nearly impossible to track the killer. Now, it happened during the dinner when everyone should be present there. Is he really that confident of not getting caught? It could also be a she. Renard said. We need to consider all possibilities before making any assumptions. Oh, of course. Don't let anyone leave the dinner hall. Write down everyone who was present there, and we'll narrow it down to the ones who weren't. What about him? A teacher looked down at the upstairs at the scared-looking student. Should we question him? Johnson. Renard looked at the bushy-bearded teacher. He is your assistant, yes? Yes, sir. Johnson nodded. He was here to bring my books, which I left in my classroom. He is our main suspect, for now. Renard said. For now, get the list of everyone that was in the dinner hall and who was not. We'll go from there. Yes, headmaster. This student was. Irene recognized him. He's Class B's student, is he not? So what? His potential rank was B. Irene said. There's been 5 murders, and each one of them was B ranked. The killer is targeting potentially talented individuals. Renard asked. If so, why don't go for A rankers? At that moment, one teacher walked up the stairs. She was the Class B's teacher. It's because his talent was much more, she said with a hurt expression. I was planning to recommend him to take the A ranker test. Renard's eyes widened in surprise. What about the other 4? A same situation with them. I was talking with the teachers of the students who got killed, and they were also planning on recommending them to A rank. Why not go after A rankers, then? One of the teachers asked. He is practicing, Irene said. This is not some professional hitman. This must be one of the students. All the murders seem clumsy, like this one's throat was cut in a very crude manner. A rankers also have more eyes on them, one teacher said. They're also rarely alone and are with their friends. The killer most likely is practicing until they can confidently approach and attack an A ranker. How come this amateur is able to kill everyone without being detected? Renard asked. Well, answer that question, detectives. His voice was annoyingly sarcastic. He could be using a skill, one teacher said. An invisible skill or something else. So, you mean the killer could be one of the tutorial takers? Renard asked. That would narrow it down even further, but you must be sure. Before I came here, I was approached by my students. A teacher, who'd been silent so far, spoke out. Apparently, one of my students, Dylan, was missing from the dinner. And he's a very reserved person. He always seems to disappear like a fart in the wind. He is also from the New World, so he has done his tutorial and came here to learn more. Sounds like someone that could have done this. Renard said. Bring him to my office, I'd like to speak to him personally. Yes, headmaster. In the dormitory of the young ones. All the doors were slung open, and the students mingled with their friends in their rooms. It was like a big sleepover party. While they were having fun, playing cards, and some were even sneaking in snacks they weren't supposed to have, the idea of the murder slowly faded away from their memory. Terry leaned out of his room, looking around the hallway of the dormitory, and then he saw something that made his heart stop. A group of pretty girls were laughing and chatting in front of one of the rooms. One of them happened to be Terry's crush. They were living one floor above, at the girls' dormitory, but they were allowed to come down to the boys' dormitory. Sigh. Terry let out a deep, emotional sigh and walked back inside, where Adam was. Scrolling through an invisible screen, which he couldn't see as it might be his system. Interface. What are you looking at? Auction window. Adam said. I put an item for sale, and it seems to finally garner some traction. Oh, how much you're getting? Terry asked curiously. 55,555 shine coins, so far. Adam said with a chuckle. That much? Terry exclaimed. It must be an amazing item. It's pretty good, but I want a little bit more. Adam said and then closed the auction window. He planned to let the auction go for another few days before ending the auction. It's just $5,555. I want way more. Adam sighed. It was a decent weapon, as it was a legendary weapon, but there weren't many dagger wielders at the top echelon of the mercenary world. He wanted enough money to buy good armor and then have some money left for real life, as there were those installment payments that were eating into his earnings. It's hard to make good money in the Institute. One of the main money revenues I planned for myself is to go get treasure hunting and then sell some of those items. I need to use my future knowledge to the best of my ability, but I am yet too weak to go any of those treasure places. Knock, knock. At this moment, someone knocked on the open door. Yo! Lucas! Terry looked over to the broad-shouldered young man whose hair was as silver as a moonlit night. He was one of the most popular students in the young ones, and he had captured many hearts during his time at the Institute. Adam, was it? Lucas showed a pearly white smile. Who are you? Adam nodded and asked. Name's Lucas, nice to meet cha. Lucas pointed at the hallway with his thumb and said. Others like to meet you, as you're a new classmate of ours, wanna come? I don't mind. Adam stood up and patted Terry on the shoulder. Terry, let's go. Me too. Terry asked in surprise. Yeah, you too. Chapter 166, Ballet Dancer. Everyone, this is Adam, treat him well, aight. Lucas introduced Adam to a group of students huddled in his room at the dorm. They were playing cards, eating snacks, and laughing loudly, but once they arrived, it turned silent, and they were all looking at Adam with their round eyes. It turned awkward real quick. Don't mind them, they haven't met a celebrity yet. Lucas patted Adam on the shoulder and joined his friends on a table, where a card game was ongoing. Yo, name's Gary. An emo-haired guy said, extending his hand for a shake. Adam shook the hand and nodded briefly. As he looked around the room, he saw the gazes of the other students lingering on him, but no one really dared to speak to him. Terry stood by the doorway, feeling out of place. This was his first time being part of a small dorm party, as he had never been invited before. He wasn't the most popular guy in the class. In fact, many of his classmates barely knew who he was. He had a stigma of being a quiet boy who wouldn't be fun at any parties, so no one bothered to invite him as they didn't want to make the atmosphere awkward and uncomfortable. Adam's gaze then landed on one of the young men, who was fiddling with some kind of gadget, but it looked like he didn't understand how it worked. Adam approached him and said, Hey, need any help with that? The young man flinched after seeing him and then stared at the gadget in his hands. I bought it from the tool shop since I thought it looked interesting, but I should have asked for goddamn instructions. It's from the New World, and not something that can be opened by normal means. Adam sat beside him and put his hand out. May I? Sure, the young man handed the gadget to him. It was cubicle-shaped and had strange symbols engraved on each side. It pretty much looked like a puzzle, and that's what the young man thought as well. Since he was a big fan of puzzles, he bought it, but had no idea how to solve it, even though back in the real world, he had solved one of the world's hardest puzzles. He was a genius at puzzle solving. Lucas and others also looked over, interested about this object from the New World. The students often bought items from the tool shop as they were from the New World, and they were very interested in learning more about that strange, amazing world. An item from the New World. Terry also approached them, interested in how Adam would solve it. See these lines? Adam traced his finger across the zigzag lines that covered the surface of the item. Those were the outline of the strange symbols that were etched into the object. While the young man focused on the symbols, thinking those had some kind of clue to opening the object, Adam knew that the real key to unlocking it was with these lines. Adam raised his index finger, and invisible sparks began to fly out from his touch. Those sparks were invisible to everyone else as well, but they could hear faint cracking like lightning. "What's this?" the young man whispered. "This is magic, one of the 3 powers, and it is the key to unlocking this gadget," Adam said, and then pressed his finger against the lines, then started tracing his finger across the line, following the line with his finger until the symbols started to glow. As his magic power flowed, the gadget began to hum and vibrate with energy. Crack! The gadget let out cracking sounds, and then symbols started to sink into the metallic surface. As the cubical object turned smaller, the gadget let out another clicking sound, and then a small opening appeared at the top of the gadget, and a small figure of a ballet dancer started to slowly rise up with grace. After it rose from the object, the ballet dancer started spinning around with grace and elegance. It was slow, yet mesmerizing. A ballet dancer. The young man's face flushed in embarrassment. "I spent 50 shine coins to buy this." Pfft! His friends erupted in laughter and started making fun of him. It felt like a complete waste of money. Rumors say that if you stare at this ballet dancer long enough, you'll start to dance her like. Too. Adam said with a wry smile. "It's made for women, I assume." "What a waste, Aish," the young man said, touching his head in frustration. Adam pushed the ballet dancer inside the gadget, and after a small click, it returned to its former state. "I'd like to check this tool shop, perhaps that place has some useful stuff as well," Adam said and handed the gadget back to the young man. "I can show it to you, maybe you can tell us what to buy," the young man grinned. "Right, Adam, you're from the New World." Lucas took his chair to them and sat down in front of them. "I am curious about hearing that place. What do you guys know?" Adam asked. "Nothing much," Lucas said with a wry smile. "I thought there were other students from the New World, aren't there?" "Yeah, but apparently none of them have actually traveled the New World," Lucas said. "That makes sense. Usually rookie mercenaries aren't allowed to go anywhere dangerous until they've proven themselves. Not sure if I know much more than others since I've only been in the New World for a couple of months, but what do you want to know? About those murders, do you have any idea how the murderer has never been seen yet, even after killing so many? I bet the guy has invisible skill," Gary said with a grin. "That skill sure would be handy." His friend elbowed him in the chest with a disgusted look. "Shut up, you pervert, what would you want to do with that skill?" "Nothing, nothing at all." Gary zipped his mouth shut. "I doubt it is an invisible skill," Adam said. "That's a very rare skill." I see." Lucas rubbed his chin. "What do you think of those murders?" "I guess the best word is griefing," Adam said. Griefing. Since most of them had played other computer games before, they recognized that term. "Yeah, since those who die in here and haven't taken the tutorial yet, can't play this game anymore." "What?" It was surprising news to them. "Wait, seriously?" Lucas frowned. "So is that why none of the murdered ones came back? I thought it was because they were too afraid to return." "It's same as dying in the tutorial," Adam said. "If you die even once before receiving the mercenaryman rank, you're unable to return to the game. So, that's why it is griefing." Lucas looked enlightened. "It's because that killer is destroying their future and basically made their time in the institute completely worthless." "Damn, I heard that killer murdered someone who's been in the institute for 5 years. 5 years to a waste. The killer is heartless, that's for sure. Adam said. If he knows about it. The killer's victims so far have been those who haven't taken the tutorial yet. I heard that. One student, who has reached beyond a rank, tried to bait the killer into killing him, but the killer never took the bait. Interesting. Adam intertwined his fingers. I wonder who the killer is. Chapter 167, The Killer and Detective. At the headmaster's study. Dylan looked blankly ahead at the candle on the mahogany desk. It was, for some reason, blue and flickering slightly, even though there was no breeze in the room. The door then opened, and Renard entered the room, his footsteps heavy and slow. While his gaze was on Dylan, he walked around the desk and took a seat on his comfy seat with its high back and plush cushions. Do you know why I've invited you here, Dylan? Renard asked, his voice oozing with coldness. I am not too sure, headmaster. Dylan replied. He had black hair like night and looked like a depressed puppy with his big, sad eyes. It was clear that he didn't enjoy people's company and preferred to keep to himself. What were you doing during the dinner? Renard asked. I was at the library, reading, Dylan replied. Oh, is that so? Renard tapped his finger on the desk. Anyone can vouch for you. Dylan shook his head and said, I was there alone. I suppose the librarian was dining as well. Humph. Renard scoffed at the explanation. Someone was killed today. Oh. Dylan lowered his head and said weakly. That's horrible. It didn't sound like he truly meant it after all. He wasn't really close to anyone in the institute and didn't really care about people's lives. As for him, this was just a video game. What a convincing tone. Renard said sarcastically. You fit the picture of the killer. You weren't in the dinner when the killing happened, you're stronger than most as you've taken the tutorial test, and you're intelligent enough to not get caught. If I were the killer, why would I kill someone during the dinner? Dylan said with a frown. It would be easy to narrow it down to the ones who weren't participating in the dinner. Because I am smarter than you, and I discovered your trick. Renard said with a scoff. What? Dylan frowned. You tried to frame Johnson's little assistant, didn't you? Renard said with a smirk. He was the main suspect at first, but then I pondered deeper and realized your devious plot. What? Dylan looked lost and confused. Don't act confused. Renard screamed. It was all part of your plan to frame him and divert attention away from yourself. No, no. Dylan shook his head. That doesn't make a lick of sense. It does, and I've caught you. Renard sat back down and said. Therefore, you're officially expelled from my institute. Pack your stuff, and leave immediately. Wait. Dylan said in a hurry. I didn't do anything. Quiet down, and I'll be sure to tell your guild master what you did, killer. Renard waved his hand. Leave, I get sick by just looking at you. Listen to me, I didn't do anything. Dylan shouted. I am sure if you investigate further and check out the other murders, you can find out that I was nowhere near those when they happened. I don't need to, I already know the truth. Renard stood up, pulled out his floor orb and pointed it at Dylan. Send the student to the lounge. No, wait. Dylan shouted, but then got sucked inside the orb and was teleported straight to the bottom floor of the tree. As his foot touched the lounge's marble and wood floor, he collapsed onto the ground in shock. That fool! Dylan gritted his teeth. If he had just investigated further, what a fucking fool! The librarian could have vouched for me that I was nowhere near one of those murders. It frustrated him to the end, and his hate for the headmaster deepened. The headmaster always thought he was the smartest person in the room, but in Dylan's opinion, he was the most arrogant and ignorant person he had ever met. I'll tell my guild master the truth, and I am sure he will contact the headmaster to get the truth of this matter. Dylan stood up, looked back to the top with hate in his eyes, and then walked out of the door, heading to the exit of the tree. As he walked down the wooden hallway, he kept muttering to himself about how he would make Renard pay for what he did. That idiot only cares about his image. He doesn't know who he's dealing with. I'll ruin him by discovering the true identity of the killer. Stab! Like a sudden thunderbolt, a blade of silvery steel pierced through the back of his neck, went cleanly through his throat, and emerged from his mouth. Dylan's eyes widened in shock as he tasted blood and steel. His heart started racing like a racing horse galloping towards the finish line, which in this case was death. "Thanks for taking the wall, I'll appreciate it." The killer spoke in his ear. "I could always count on the headmaster's ignorance." Dylan's eyes widened in shock as he recognized that voice. He wanted to say the killer's real name but couldn't utter a single word because of the blade in his mouth. "You won't remember any of this either way. You won't even remember that you got expelled," the killer whispered, then pushed a bottle of forget powder down Dylan's throat. "Forget powder? No." Dylan's eyes shook. "I'll forget everything, no. Bye, bye." The killer chuckled in his ear, then took the steel blade out of his mouth and sliced through his head, severing it from his body. Dylan collapsed on the ground, headless, and while he was slowly fading away from existence, he could still hear the killer's laughter echoing in his mind. No. With that, his eyes turned blank and his life slipped away. The killer's laughter slowly faded away as well as he disappeared into the darkness, leaving behind a lifeless body. The hallway was now empty except for the bleeding corpse. However, since it would take another 4 to 5 hours before the night fell, the corpse would disappear way before the two guards, Ilkin and Will Ebert, returned from outside. A pleasant piano music played from a music box resting on a nearby table. It worked with the magic energy crystals powering it. While the music made the atmosphere comfy, Renard, wearing a bathrobe and slippers, took a seat on his reclining chair while enjoying a cup of warm chamomile tea. "La la la," he sang alongside the piano music and then took a sip of the tea. He was in a very good mood after, in his opinion, discovering the culprit of the killings. Basically single-handedly. "A fool tried to trick me, haha, I am not that stupid." Renard smirked and put the tea on the table next to his book. "I would be great detective, solving crimes left and right," he thought to himself with a chuckle. At this moment, the door opened with a gentle creak, and a long-legged woman entered the room. She had quite heavy makeup on her face, which made her look slightly older than she probably was, but she had a great body and was dressed very professionally. "Headmaster." The woman's voice was very high-pitched, and she seemed slightly out of breath as she spoke. "Good work today. Bertha, take off your clothes and join me in the bath, we've got a lot to celebrate today," Renard said with a smirk and emptied his teacup with one long sip. "I'll be right there." Bertha bowed with a shy smile and went to the other room to undress. "Detective Renard has a pretty good ring to it." Renard smirked. Chapter 168, Herbology. The weeks flew by. It was History Week, thus the classes were all about the history of the New World. While it was interesting for other students, Adam basically shut down his brain for those classes and barely paid attention, but he was thinking about his future plans. Elder Tree Institute had Christmas holidays, and during those holidays, there weren't any classes or mandatory attendance, so the students could do whatever they wanted. While the students spent the time back in the real world, having fun with Christmas, Adam planned to visit the New World without any overbearing restrictions. However, it was currently the 5th month of the year, and the Christmas holidays were still 7 months ago. On the other hand, his auction item had broken the 70,000 shine coin barrier. It was slowing down, but the amount was still increasing with each passing day. It was fun to see the money increase like that, as it felt like his bank account was swelling each day. However, he doubted he could earn enough to pay the whole Z package. There was no way anyone would pay 3 million shine coins for the dagger, so during Christmas holidays, he planned to go do some treasure hunting to pay off the package. Since there was still a lot of time before then, Adam focused his attention on strengthening himself. At this very day, all the classes and the dinner had ended. The gym was active with people working out. At the furthest corners of the gym, where it was peaceful and quiet, Adam did biceps curls, the warm sweat rolling down his forehead. The daily training had not been naught, as he could feel his muscles getting stronger with each repetition. Whew! Terry let out a satisfied sigh as he finished his final set of bench presses. He then sat up on it, took his towel, and wiped the sweat away. For the past week, he'd been joining Adam in the gym, and at first, it was almost like torture, as every morning his body was screaming in pain, even though it was just his virtual body. However, for some odd reason, his real body was feeling way better, like he was living in bliss. Adam explained that it was the magic of the workout and the Platinum Virtual Reality Pod. If you trained in the Mortal Online, its effect would reach the real body, and you would feel the physical benefits in no time. It was surprising to Terry as he had no idea. The other ranked pods didn't have as strong of an effect, that's why the Platinum VR pod was a must-have, as its benefits were much greater than any money spent on it. Did you hear about what's happening tomorrow? Terry asked while taking a sip of his water. Canteen. No. Adam said with a grunt while finishing up his set of bicep curls, then he put the dumbbells back on the rack. We have teacher Bertha's class. Terry said with an ugly expression. She is very annoying, and every student hates her, but beside that, apparently we are going to the forest. To the forest? Adam looked interested. You mean the outside forest? Yep. Terry nodded. We're supposed to go gather some herbs, but it's dangerous outside. Yet, while the night is the most dangerous time here, the daytime is not some picnic time either. This is 25th floor, after all. We've been outside before, but very close to the elder tree. Terry said. The monsters don't really approach the elder tree, but they can, nothing is stopping them from doing so. Bertha must be a teacher of herbology. Adam thought to himself. It is a dead art, but maybe I should try to learn it. It could come in handy, especially the poison aspect of the herbology. The students, dressed in their mandatory school outdoor uniforms, were waiting in the lounge, awaiting for their teachers so they could depart to the forest. It made many of them excited but also nervous, as the outside world was quite dangerous. Adam, standing beside Terry, straightened the sleeves of his school jacket. It was light blue in color with white flowers embroidered on it. It was very nice looking, but Adam was more interested in the fabric. This jacket has good defensive capabilities. I suppose they didn't allow us to go to the forest completely unprotected. At that moment, a whirlpool of light descended from the air and landed at the lounge. From the whirlpool of light, Bertha emerged, attired in outdoor clothes that clung to her body like a wet rag. She wasn't smiling as her mouth was a straight line, and she even looked little bit annoyed when she looked at the students present. Move into teams of 2. I give each team a recipe of herbs and spices to find in the forest. The team that completes it first will have a prize waiting for them at the end of the day. It interested the students clearly, and the close friends already started to create teams. Shall we be a team? Terry asked with a smile. Sure. Adam nodded. Seeing the bustle of the students, Bertha frowned and said, I haven't said the teams yet, so quiet down. I am not allowing you to create your own teams, otherwise, all you will do is fool around and not take this seriously. The students looked disappointed and had a hunch that Bertha was planning to do this. It wasn't secret to them that she absolutely hated every single student in the institute. They were wondering why she even became a teacher if she hated teaching so much. Ah, cursed. Terry started to feel nervous, as he didn't know anyone else that well. He looked around the lounge and felt his face turn cold as he saw a group of 3 Noel, Renee, and Jake glancing in their direction with hate. They had finally gotten out of their week-long detention. After a week of sitting in a dark room and having time to think, they realized that Adam must have done something to them. It scared them as it was like a work of a god. The whole stair disappearance seemed so real that they still had nightmares about it. Their nightmares have them falling down to their deaths, and they always jolted awake in a state of shock, still feeling like they were falling. It was all Adam's doings. Bertha started making teams. She made sure that the teams included 2 people that clearly weren't close with each other. Terry. She finally came to her and said, "Go join Noelle." Terry panicked. "See, can I get someone else?" "Go!" Bertha screamed. Terry, panicked and nervous, reluctantly walked over to Noelle. Noelle's eyes turned cold, and he was repeatedly clenching and opening his hands. "Now, Adam." Bertha looked at the young man for a split second longer than others and said, "You're with Yuri." "Yuri." Adam saw that there was one person without any partner yet. She looked like a timid-looking student with squinted eyes and a nervous look on her face with a small smile trying to break through. Adam walked over to her slowly, then nodded to her. She returned the nod. Then they stood side by side, waiting for the signal to leave. Bertha handed every team a parchment paper of the recipe and then went to open the door. "You have 5 hours to find every herb and spice." Bertha opened the door. Go. Chapter 169, Weakling. The sun's brilliant glow fell over the trees, creating shadows across the grassy, muddy terrain as a gentle breeze rustled the leaves above. The students stayed near the elder tree, looking at the parchment paper in their hands with a frown on their faces. They kept picking up different kinds of plants, fungi, and flowers to examine them more closely, but some of them didn't have any idea what those herbs and spices looked like. For fear of encountering monsters, no one dared to go too far into the forest. Yuri crouched beside a plant with unique, different-colored leaves. The plant had a total of 7 leaves, each leaf a different color of the rainbow. "This must be something, right?" Yuri looked behind at Adam. "Is this part of the list?" "That's rainbow plant, is it included in the recipe?" Adam asked. Yuri read throughout the parchment paper, then regretfully shook her head. "No." "Then we keep searching," Adam said and looked deeper into the forest. "I doubt the teacher included any of the herbs and spices that are in the vicinity of the elder tree. I have a hunch that she wants us to go deeper into the forest." "Isn't that dangerous?" Yuri asked. "There are monsters." "We won't go too far," Adam said. He saw that all the students had only ventured 10 meters out into the forest. They all could still see the door that led back to the institute, a door that was guarded by Ilkin and Will Ebert. Bertha was just standing still, annoyance in her features. She looked like she was always annoyed by something. "Let's go," Adam said, and Yuri reluctantly followed after him. Other students watched as they walked away, and no one dared to follow them. A distance away, Terry awkwardly stood behind Noelle, who hadn't spoken a word and was just looking at the plants, the roots that protruded from soil and seeds. Noelle clearly didn't know what any of the herbs and spices in the recipe looked like. However, Terry knew as he had studied well, but he was too afraid to say anything. The silence was killing him. At this point, he would prefer Noelle's verbal bullying, as at least it would be clear that he was angry. Noelle dug his fingers in the soil and ripped the roots of the flowers out of the ground. He had a cold look on his face, and he couldn't help but remember a conversation he had with his brother a few days ago. A few days ago, somewhere in the real world. In a well-furnished room with a gaming console and a flat-screen TV showing action-packed gameplay. On the sofa, a lankily built man moved his thumbs furiously across the controller, his eyes glued to the screen. "Brother, were you listening to me?" Noelle shouted from sidelines. He was furious, as he had spent the last few days stuck in that detention room. The detention room had no sunlight. It was dark and silent for every hour of the day. He was unclear how long he'd been stuck inside the detention. At this moment, a font with bold red letters saying dead appeared on the screen. The man scoffed and put the controller away. What do you want, lil bro? I want you to come to the Elder Tree Institute and kill someone for me. Noel said with a shout. Hey! His brother looked at him before laughing. Ahaha, you can't handle your own battles. It's not that. Noel gritted his teeth. He has unfair advantage as he is mercenary already. I am not your personal hitman. His brother said with a shrug. Who is it that you want to die either way? Perhaps I know him. Noel turned silent, and then, with a soft whisper, he said. Adam Palestar. Pfft. His brother spat out in disbelief and then rose to his feet in anger. Are you crazy? What? Noel frowned. You're stronger than him. If I lure him outside and you're there waiting, it will be an easy kill. At this moment, his brother slugged him in the face, and Noel went flying backwards, crashing into the wall behind him. It was almost like his punch was as strong as a cannon shot. Ah, my face! Noel cried out in pain and rolled on the floor, holding his injured mouth. Why the fuck are you so stupid? His brother asked genuinely. Were you dropped as a child or what? How are you this fucking stupid? It's just freaking one person. Noel screamed. Are you afraid of being caught? Since when did your balls drop, brother? Ha 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 ha. His brother just laughed and shook his head. Did you anger him? Hey! Did you make enemies out of him? Noel scoffed. Of course. His brother pinched his forehead and then said. Apologize to him. Immediately. Hey, the fuck? Noel stood up and shouted. I am not some little bitch. Now you are. His brother said and grabbed Noel by his collar. You are now his little bitch. You'll do whatever he wants, are you listening to me? No, I fucking won't. Noel tried to take his hand away from him but lacked the strength to do so. What the fuck is wrong with you? I don't let you drag our name in the mud because of your childish antics. His brother said coldly. Your actions have consequences, you stupid fuck. If my guild hears that my little brother made enemies out of fucking S-Ranker, what do you think they'll do to me? Arg. Noel gritted his teeth. I won't apologize to anyone. Ha. His brother let go of him and shook his head. Fine. I hope the S-Ranker thinks that. You are far too insignificant to care about. Noel clenched his hands, anger swelling up inside him. At the Elder Tree Forest. Noel stopped ripping the roots, his eyes flashing with coldness. Hey, I think I saw one of the plants deeper in the forest. Terry said nervously behind him. T-terminal claws plant, I think I saw it. Noel turned around to look at the nervous-looking young man, and then the anger inside him started to boil over. Without any warning, Noel grabbed Terry by the hair and smashed his face into the dirt, causing his screams to come out as muffled pleas for mercy. Shut the fuck up. Noel said coldly into his ear. I'm done with your bullshit. Bertha witnessed it, but she didn't seem to care as she simply averted her gaze, pretending like she didn't see a thing. Instead of focusing on the class, she was thinking about what dress she should wear later tonight as she was going to meet with Renard once again. The other students saw it, but just simply averted their gazes and focused on finding the herbs. Instead, Noel removed Terry's face from the dirt and turned his head just so he could stare into his eyes. You think you're bully-free because you are following S-Ranker like a fucking puppy? Terry's eyes looked unfocused, and he didn't dare to speak another word. You're still the same fucking coward as before, and it is only a matter of time before he gets tired of you as well. Noel said and smashed his face on the dirt again. Know your place, weakling. Chapter 170, Shocking Honesty. Yuri held soil-covered seeds in her small hands, carefully looking at them. She had been learning about herbology and its thousands of different plants for her classes, but not enough to know every seed from her memory. She spent most of her time learning magic from a genius magician, Kevin, who had taught her all of the basics. After doing her tutorial, she planned on becoming a magician, so she only learned the basics of herbology to not get a bad grade. Yuri turned to her partner and showed the seeds. Do you know what these are? They're Carcellus seeds, Adam replied, recognizing the small, black seeds in Yuri's hand. Carcellus seeds. Yuri checked the recipe, and a smile blossomed on her face. It's in the recipe. Here. Adam handed her a small glass jar, knowing that she would need it to properly store the seeds. After she put the seeds inside the jar, Adam closed it tightly and stored it inside his inventory. How do you know so much about seeds and plants? Yuri asked curiously as she stood up from the soil-covered ground, her knees covered in dirt. I knew someone that was very into herbology. Adam said with a tone filled with nostalgia. She found solace and peace in her garden, and I found solace in listening to her talk about it. Oh, it sounds like you two were close. Yuri said with a curious tone. She wondered who could make him rank or show such expression. What is her name? Yuri asked. Lisa. She sounds like a nice person. Yuri said with a smile and then hopped off to another area of the forest to search for more ingredients for the recipe. Adam slipped his hands inside his pockets and followed after her. Yuri found a quite unique plant that she had never seen before. Its petals were a vibrant shade of blue, and it was oozing a sweet, fragrant liquid. What's this? Yuri asked, bending down to inspect it. Sweet blue plant. Adam said. Its liquid is only an important part. Is it included in the recipe? Yuri quickly checked it out and said. Sweet blue plant's liquid, 100 ml. All right. Adam took out another empty jar, placed it under the plant, and began carefully collecting the liquid. The jar was soon half full. He collected more than 100 ml, but he doubted that it would matter as more was merrier. After putting the jar inside his inventory, they headed to search for the next ingredient. They had been working at a nice and leisurely pace, almost half of the ingredients already gathered, and it hadn't even been an hour. Where's this Lisa now? Yuri asked. She usually enjoyed the quietness as she wasn't the most social person, but she was very interested in knowing more about him as he seemed very mysterious. Where? Adam took a deep breath and said. Somewhere in Cloverland with her brother. Cloverland, wow! Yuri muttered to herself. Are you also from there? No, I am from Highlands, Adam said. Oh, you met this Lisa in the New World? Yuri asked and then picked up one of the seeds from the ground, which she recognized as one of the ingredients for the recipe. I did, Adam said. You must be missing her, the way you're talking about her. Yuri said. Will you meet her once you leave this place? I am planning to meet her. Adam said. In 3 years. 3 years. Yuri took her own jar from her inventory and put the seeds inside. That's a long time, no. It is, but I am patient player. Adam said. Are you dating her or? Yuri asked as she stood up and headed even deeper to the forest. As Adam followed after her, he said. I used to. Used to? Yuri curiously looked at him. Yeah, we broke up, Adam said. Oh, I thought the way you talked about her, you two were still a thing. Yuri hummed in surprise. You still like her? Adam didn't answer that question and just kept walking behind her. After not receiving an answer, Yuri asked another one. Why did you two break up? I liked her. She liked me back. But, in the end, we simply didn't have the chemistry. Oh. Yuri hadn't dated anyone, so she couldn't really understand what he meant by the chemistry. When I was dating her, I felt like something was wrong. Adam said. I liked her, I truly did, and I had fun with her, but I always felt like she wasn't the one. It's strange. Like she wasn't your soulmate? Yuri asked. Soulmate? Adam looked at her and shrugged his shoulders. I don't believe in soulmates, but yet, I always felt like there was someone else in the world for me. If you like her enough, maybe you should try to rekindle the candle with her. Yuri suggested. Adam laughed and shook his head. No, that ship has passed. Then why are you planning to meet her in 3 years? Yuri asked. It sounds like you are very excited to meet her. I plan on killing her. Hey! Yuri stopped in her tracks and looked at him in shock. Are you serious? Adam just smiled and plucked a plant from the ground. YRHM's plant. He handed it over to her. The last ingredient in the recipe. Yuri took it to her arms and looked at him in surprise. She wasn't sure whether he was joking and this was just one of his dark comedy jokes, but when she looked at his face, she felt conflicted. It didn't seem like he was joking. Shall we return? Adam asked and started heading back. I want to win the prize, after all. Ah, all right. Yuri jogged after him but couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled in her stomach. She kept a short distance to Adam for the whole way back. After a few hundred meters of walking, they arrived back at the elder tree and saw that there were still some groups desperately trying to find any ingredients nearby. However, it was painfully clear that there weren't any, and other groups had found that out already. Bertha was standing in the same place as she saw an hour ago. It didn't look like she was focusing on anything that was happening around her, as she was stuck inside her mind. Teacher. Yuri hopped over to her. Bertha woke back up and looked at the chirpy young man, and in annoyance, she asked. What? We've got all of our ingredients already. Yuri said with a smile. Bertha's eyebrow jumped in surprise, and she looked over to Adam, who was her partner. Are you sure you got the correct ingredients? Why yet? Yuri said with a nod. She was still slightly hesitant whether Adam actually knew the correct seeds and plants. He acted in a very convincing manner, but some plants and seeds look very similar to each other. Show me them. Yuri and Adam took out the jars filled with seeds, plant juice, and some plants. Bertha checked all of them closely, and after doing so, she was genuinely surprised. All are correct. Yes. Yuri cheered and looked at Adam with a big smile. Good job. Bertha said. You two may return to the institute, if you want to. I'll give you your reward after the class has ended. Yuri nodded with a smile. Adam immediately planned to take a trip to the gym. He had become slightly addicted to weightlifting as he had finally started to see his body improving greatly. He felt like his current tank skills were lackluster, as he didn't have physique big enough to take full advantage of his skills and knowledge. It's also the reason why no one had taken him seriously as tanker, as no one expected someone as scrawny as him to be able to protect anyone. As Adam was about to return to the institute, he felt a tap on his shoulder. He turned around and saw an unfamiliar face, clearly one of the students, look at him with a hesitant gaze. What is it? Adam asked. Who are you? The student stammered and said. Why, Yuri, Terry's friend, right? Yes. Adam raised an eyebrow. Well. The student looked around, and after seeing that no one was watching, he said. Noel. And his two friends took Terry somewhere. It didn't look like they were going to have a friendly chat. Is that so? Adam looked deep into the forest, tapped the student on the shoulder, and started heading into the forest. Adam, where are you going? Yuri asked, but after seeing that he wasn't replying, she frowned and decided to follow after him.